My name is Becky Doherty, and I'm with the League of Women Voters, and I want to thank you for coming. This is the second forum in our evening of candidate forums before the spring election, April 3rd. This section of the forum is for the judge candidates for Portage County. This evening's program is being videotaped for broadcast, and I'll give you those times. Friday, March 30th, 8:30 p.m., Saturday, March 31st at 2:30 p.m. and 9 p.m., and then again Monday, April 2nd at 8 o'clock. They'll be shown over the community access television stations 95 or 984. The League is not hosting forums at this time for City Council or County Board candidates. All candidates received written questions from the League which have been submitted to the Journal and to the Gazette for publication, and these candidate questions and answers are also available on the League's website. If you would like information about how to access our League website, we have a brochure over here with that address on it. And if you were to search for League of Women Voters Stevens Point, it might even come up. So do that, and hopefully it works. The League of Women Voters is a multifaceted, nonpartisan, yet political organization. The League studies issues, develops member consensus on positions, and advocates for and takes actions against certain issues. Likewise, the League's work is with voter service, and this voter service is also multifaceted. The basic principle of voter service is to be nonpartisan while providing unbiased and accurate information regarding voter registration, election issues, and the candidates. So a candidate forum that you're attending tonight is just one component of the variety of voter service activities that we are involved in. So I welcome you to our evening second half here with Dr. Ed Miller, Professor of Political Science at the University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point, who is our moderator this evening. And we gave him a chance to sit down after he stood for the first forum. So, Ed?
Okay, well, thank you very much. The Circuit Court Branch 1 judge serves a 6-year term. Well, so does the other branch. It is a full-time position with a salary of $128,600, minus pension contribution and health insurance. For the April 3rd election, there are two candidates, Tom Egan, to my left, and Michael Mckenna, to my right. In order to provide the most time to hear from the candidates and provide a fair and equal opportunity to answer questions important to you in this community, I will review the format, time, and terms of this format. This has been seen by the candidates. Each candidate in this forum will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. They will then have 2 minutes to respond to each question. The order for responding to questions has been selected earlier, with Mr. Mckenna going first in that area with the first question. Then the questions will be rotated. The timers are located in front of the candidates' tables. A green light will go on when their time starts, and the yellow light will indicate 30 seconds remaining, and a red light the time that has expired. Candidates may finish their sentence, then please stop, and the next candidate may begin their response. Candidates are asked to keep their remarks germane to the question and fair to the participants. The moderator reserves the right to interrupt to ensure that these ground rules are observed. Candidates will respond first to the question submitted by the League, and then to the audience question. So if you have a question, please fill out the cards here, and I will receive the cards back. So please fill out the cards. The League reserves the right to review and screen questions for relevance and to avoid duplication. We now begin with a 2-minute opening statement from each of the candidates. We will begin with Mr. Mckenna.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. Despite the warm weather, the beautiful weather, and the basketball tournament, it's great to see so many people interested in judicial government. My name is Mike Mckenna. I live in Plover with my wife. I'd like to shout out, if I may, to two members of my committee, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Hickater, who's here tonight, and also my son, Captain John Mckenna, who's preparing to deploy for his 3rd tour to the Middle East. Also my son, Tom Mckenna, who lives in Stevens Point, is here. My qualifications for Branch 1 include leadership, independence, and experience. Talk just a minute about leadership. I have a 34-year career in the military, retired Army colonel. I enlisted when I was 17. And I want to mention one thing that I think is very important, and that is my candidacy is about a self-made person. Americans as a whole, we don't like the argument of entitlement, birthright, or legacy. I enlisted when I was 17. I went to school on the GI Bill. I'm a retired Army colonel, Bronze Star for service in Iraq, Legion of Merit. I'm a true independent in the race. I also have 25 years of experience as an attorney, as a judge advocate, as a civil attorney, as a criminal attorney. I served as a special assistant United States attorney, where I prosecuted felony and misdemeanor crimes at Fort Ord, California. I've been your lead civil attorney for 14 years, where I have a reputation as a problem solver. I've done many, many types of civil cases, and 70% of what a circuit court does is civil cases, according to statistics from 2008, 2009, and 2010. So I have the background, the experience, the leadership, and the true independence that I think the people in Portage County are looking for in circuit court judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Egan.
Well, good evening. Thanks for coming, and thank you to the League. I am Tom Egan. I'm running for Portage County Circuit Court Judge to replace the retiring Judge Fleischauer, who has been here on the bench for over 30 years. I think it is important for the next judge to have the broad range of experience to handle the cases that will come before the court. And most of those cases are criminal cases. In speaking with the judges, they spend 60% of their time on the criminal cases that were brought by my office and the district attorney's office. If you add in their rotation for when they do the juvenile cases, that's 75% of those times. These are serious cases with some very tough issues. The judge has to understand those cases and those issues. As your district attorney for the past 17 years, I've dealt with these cases. These are child abuse, child sexual assault, and homicide cases, dealing with Miranda issues and suppression issues, dealing with issues involving domestic abuse and sexual assault. We need a judge with the experience to understand and deal with those cases as they come through his or her court. I was born and raised in Portage County, and I feel very lucky to have been in a county where we were safe and secure and had a great sense of community well-being. It's been my goal as DA and will be my goal as judge to keep that sense of security and well-being in the community. I also have a private sector experience dealing with family law, divorce, real estate, and creditor-debtor, bankruptcy, and I even practiced in tribal court when I was in the private practice. So I believe I have the background and experience and the sense of justice that is necessary for our next judge.
Okay. Thank you. We will start with the first question, and Mike Mckenna gets the first question since he picked number one. Question number one: what is the most critical issue facing our Portage County justice system?
The most critical issue facing our justice system these days, like it is for all government, is inadequate funding. Judges in Portage County and throughout Wisconsin have to work within the system to ensure that they are doing that which is cost effective for the system. And I've been a leader in doing problem solving that the problem solving skills that the type of a circuit court judge needs to have. For example, in CCAP, I helped draft which was a necessity for Portage County. I helped draft the contract and work with the state of Wisconsin to bring CCAP in. There was a lot of opposition. There still is some degree of opposition to the CCAP system, which is the circuit court automated system. So I think it's the lack of funding. It's being able to come up with creative problem-solving solutions of the type that I've been able to bring to my position as the county's lead civil attorney for the past 14 years. We also face issues of crowded dockets. We also face issues of difficult case assignments and and lack of time, and I'm able to bring those problem-solving skills that I brought, working with local businesses, working with contracts, working with all sorts of different people during my long career, particularly in the military. I've had experience dealing with foreign governments, with any and all sorts of people within the military, with civilians, helping our service members and their families. So I think I bring those problem-solving skills to the serious problem that we have, which is lack of funding throughout the courts.
Thank you. Tom Egan.
Thank you. I think I would tend to agree budgetary issues are always a primary problem, but they're not new to the court system. What we've done in Portage County is to try to alleviate the problem as much as we can in a reasonable and intelligent manner. And we've done that through what we call the Justice Coalition, where you bring every party involved in the justice system itself together to try and address these problems collectively. That way you can, when you try to reduce, for example, jail bed use days, you do it in an intelligent way where you set up evaluation system and collaborative system so that the other stakeholders in the system can respond in a full manner. What we learned a number of years ago is our jails were full, and 35% of those were related to OWI issues. So what we did is we got the groups together, the treatment people, the jail people, the court people, the DA's office, and probation and parole, and looked at how we can address this by alleviating the number of jail bed days that are necessary. We set up an evaluation system when the offenders come in. It's a pretrial supervision program. They're evaluated. If they need treatment, they're put into group treatment. They have to day report where they have to blow or provide a urine sample. And for those who are able to make it through the program without failing, they get a break on their jail sentence. For those who need help, we can put them on home monitor if they're willing to go through rehabilitation programs. For those who are unwilling to cooperate, they're the ones who get the jail days that have to be served. In that way, we address not only a rehabilitation, we provide for safety of the public, but we've also only used the jail bed days for those who need it the most.
Thank you. Second question, which Tom Egan will begin with. It's somewhat similar to his answer. According to a past Portage County jail study, persons who were booked in the jail 2 or more times made up 91% of the days served in a 10-year period. 60% had been booked in the jail 4 or more times. These statistics reveal an incredibly high recidivism rate. What do you think Portage County needs to do in order to reduce the rate of repeat offenders?
Sure, and as those statistics show, we are putting people in jail who have shown that they cannot be in the community safely otherwise. So we are going to have a higher rate of recidivism in our jail population. But what we can do is give them the opportunity for rehabilitation. It's up to them to take it. If they're not willing to take it, they'll be back in jail. But what those figures don't reflect are those who are successfully going through the program, successfully going through rehabilitation, and are not repeating, and are becoming productive members of our community. These are the type of deferred programs that we need to continue and hopefully expand. This is the type of program that we've done in Portage County, so now the Wisconsin Department of Correction wants to join us in a model program to look at the whole system and create the type of system where only those who need to be in jail and in custody are in custody. Those who are willing to go through programming and rehabilitation are out and more productive in our community.
Recidivism is obviously a key correctional issue both in Portage County and throughout Wisconsin. I would question whether what we are doing regarding recidivism is working, and I would definitely question whether what we are doing with recidivism is working well. As a problem solver, I know that you have to look at what's been called evidence-based solutions, and that basically means stuff that works. And I think we need to explore stuff that works. We have a jail overcrowding problem. We ship prisoners out of county. That creates stress on families. It creates a lot of problems. I think we have to explore whether or not a new program from the state will be beneficial to the county. It's not clear right now that new program will actually help county residents, or whether or not it's going to bring in out-of-county residents for rehabilitation. That is particularly unclear. I have had track record as a problem solver, working with local businesses, working with groups, and I would look toward working with groups to see what we can do about the recidivism problem. It's definitely a problem, but it's a very complex issue and it's very hard to get at. We ship a significant number, although the jail population is down somewhat, we ship a significant number of people to Lincoln County. The sheriff and the jail staff, when they select people to go to Lincoln County, are selecting a certain type of individual. And we want to put our important and precious county tax dollars where they're going to do the most good. We have to target the right population. I question at this time whether we are targeting the right population. We may be able to target our dollars more productively with, for example, rehabilitation. We may be able to target, for example, and every veterans group I've talked to supports this, veterans groups with rehabilitative services. So I look to be a change agent and to relook at these problems with problem-solving ideas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mike Mckenna begins with the third question, which is somewhat similar. What are your views on the importance of diversion, alternative sentencing, and reentry programs, specifically programs existing in Portage County, such as the Deferred Prosecution Program, Volunteers and Probation Program, and the Teams Reentry Program?
The question regarding rehabilitation programs, volunteers and probation, I think, as the moderator suggests, is closely aligned to the issue of recidivism and our approach to corrections. As a problem solver, I want to make sure that we are looking at applying the right resources at the right time with the right individuals. I think we need to relook at a lot of things. We should relook at volunteers and probation. I think it can be a good program, but it's not completely clear that we're targeting the right individuals. I think rehabilitation is critical, but as a circuit court judge, we also have to look at the importance of public safety to make sure that the right individuals, again, are receiving the right types of programs at the right time. I joined Mr. Egan, and I have worked with Tom, as well as many others, on the Justice Coalition since its inception. I've worked doing the civil aspects of that program, working with contracts, for example, with the Family Law Information Center, and working with those types of programs to make sure that we are targeting the programs and the individuals who need the help at the right time to get them the help that's important, consistent with goals of public safety, and making sure that punishment is also appropriate for the individuals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, apparently, Mike, you haven't been listening at the Justice Coalition meetings. These have been very successful programs. They are programs that were studied by the Wisconsin Law School and have been written about by Dr. Kempinen. Basically, Portage County is a leader in the state in these deferred programs that have been described. The targeting of the right individuals is an ongoing assessment process, but I've never heard that being questioned by you or it seriously questioned within the coalition, and I find that troubling at this point. The Volunteers in Probation program that we have that's done through Justice Works is one of the most amazing programs that we have, particularly for our young offenders. It gives those young offenders who very often have never had a decent role model in their family life an opportunity to have a community mentor, an adult positive role model that they can go and speak to and address some of the issues that they have. and learn what is normal to be a productive citizen in our community. It has been just a fantastic program that I'm hoping we can expand to greater in the future, and hopefully expand it to other offenders, because many of our criminal population simply don't know a better life, and our mentors guide them not only through how they're criminally thinking, but guide them through the community process on getting into the mid-state, how to apply, how to look for scholarships, how to get their driver's license. It's really been a terrific program that has just an amazing amount of success stories behind it.
Thank you. The next question Tom will begin with. A few weeks ago, I think it was, the Attorney General of Wisconsin suggested the elimination or the substitution of the current preliminary hearing process to streamline the courts and the operation so there wouldn't be as much of a backlog. What do you think about that?
The preliminary hearing process has been somewhat of an archaic process in the legal history, in the sense that under modern legal practice in criminal cases, the defense gets all the information that the state has in bringing the case. That's called discovery. In the early days of criminal prosecution, when Wisconsin first became a state and when preliminary hearings were arranged for, there was no sharing of information, so the preliminary process ended up being a good discovery process for the criminal attorney. That is no longer needed. The preliminary hearing now is somewhat filters the case for the court. The court has to decide, is it probable that a crime was committed? Was that crime a felony? And then did the defendant commit it? It's a very low threshold for the state, the prosecution, to meet. And it can be done. In Portage County, we do them all in basically 20 minutes or less. So this isn't going to, it sounds like a big change, but it's really not going to be a big change in the criminal process. What the advantage is in being able to use hearsay is you will be in those real sensitive crime cases where you're dealing with rape victims. You need to have a preliminary hearing generally within 10 days of the arrest and initial appearance of the offendant. That's a very difficult time for a crime victim who's been raped to have to come into court and testify about her personal violation. This change will help with that. I understand it has been passed already today. I think it sounds like a bigger change than it really is. In reality, those haven't been very productive for defendants.
As far as preliminary hearing goes, I have practiced law in jurisdictions that have had them, and I've practiced law in jurisdictions that have not had them. I would support the Attorney General's initiative. I think it will not restrict the rights of defendants, and it will streamline the process. And I guess in this case, I would agree with Mr. Egan, the District Attorney. I think it's a good thing. It will not be an unfair burden. Tom is right when he says that there is a full-fledged discovery in the criminal legal process. And I think that the Attorney General is right in looking at eliminating this to assist the courts in streamlining the docket. So I would fully support the Attorney General's initiative here.
Okay. Beginning with Mike, a question from the audience says, excluding your duties as a lawyer, what has your involvement been with community programs, nonprofit organizations, and so forth?
Excluding my duties as a lawyer, well, that's sometimes like taking the DNA out of what you do. You know, I've done volunteer work for my church. I've been involved with a lot of volunteer work, particularly with the military. Since I've retired, I've assisted many military families and service members with their legal issues. That's a huge part of my DNA since I joined the service when I was 17 years old. I was Wisconsin's lead staff judge advocate for 30 years, and I've helped thousands of soldiers and thousands of family members with legal issues throughout that time and since. So I've been very active in doing those things, active in veterans organizations, and contributing to the community.
And I've been involved with the Portage County Community Foundation. Now it's Central Wisconsin Community Foundation. More recently, I've been involved with the Boys and Girls Club on the board. The Boys and Girls Club is one of those organizations that does provide positive mentoring for our kids. They're basically an extension of the school. The Boys and Girls Club 10 years ago didn't exist. It's just something that's come up with the last 10 years, and it has expanded to help generally underprivileged kids, but any kid, to be in a good, healthy environment after school starts. We have Boys and Girls Clubs in Junction City, Village of Almond, Village of Plover, and in Stevens Point, and we also have a teen group in Stevens Point. After school, they have a reading hour, they have homework time, they also have fun time, mentoring, art shows. It's really quite a fantastic organization that gives our kids a safe place to go until their parents get home after work. I've also been involved in the Legal Aid Society, not part of my work as in the district attorney's office, trying to provide legal services for the indigent, which is another growing issue for the courts.
Okay, thank you. The next question, which I think we start with Tom, is what is your position on the proposed as the Department of Corrections Portage County Community Corrections Center?
And the proposed center is an idea at this point, but it is something that the Department of Corrections went throughout the state trying to find a new way of addressing criminal issues, criminal defendants, and making them productive members of society once they either get out of prison or out of jail or as part of their probationary sentence. They looked around the state to try to find programs and put a request for proposals out, and different areas in the state made those requests or made those proposals, and the department didn't like it. Didn't feel that there was any progress, nothing new going on. So what they did on their own is then they looked to see what was going on around the state, and they looked at Portage County and the programs that we have. Our pretrial supervision program, our day report, our post-sentence supervision program, the deferred prosecution agreements we do in the DA's office, the domestic abuse alternatives program that we offer for our domestic abuse defendants, the criminal thinking classes that we have in our jails and as part of probationary work, the high school equivalency program we have in our jail to get our inmates the education, and they thought, you know, this is what we'd like to see the whole state doing. And so the Department of Corrections came to Portage County and said, we want you to be involved in this community center, that we want to take a holistic approach to the criminal justice system and do what we can to make your community safe, and then work that out and then try to present that for the rest of the state so they can take the Portage County model and use it in their own counties. So I'm in favor of doing this. The Department of Corrections seems to be indicating they're going to be offering quite a bit of money to help us get this done. And as long as it meets the goals of community safety, you take the crime victim interests at heart and make sure they feel safe with what you're doing, and that you do it in a frugal, money-sensible way. And that's what we're going to try and do in Portage County, and I'm in favor of it. The lights aren't working I think the green may be burned out in the yellow.
No. We do need a new one. It's not working.
Well, I guess it's not surprising with two lawyers that the green light would burn out. On the Department of Corrections initiative, I think literally the jury is still out. There's a lot of details left to be desired. Certainly the goal, the programs that Tom articulated have been successful in some rehabilitative efforts, but it's not quite clear what this Department of Corrections program is and what it will mean for Portage County and what sort of participation will be required of the county, and for which offenders will this program be. Physical plant is definitely an issue. Whether or not this would require the purchase of a new building, whether or not this would require increased county funding for programs. We have a lot of good programs, great programs, like Tom suggested, but it's unclear. One key concern that I would suggest is we don't want to become a magnet for out-of-county placement, and that has not been described whether or not out-of-county individuals will be placed in this program. So that remains a major concern of mine. My track record is that of a problem solver. This could be work, this could be a great program, but the jury is out. We just don't really have enough details to make a full and fair assessment of it at this time.
Thank you. Mike Mckenna gets the next question from the audience, and it's, restorative justice is a pride in Portage County. How do you feel about collaboration with this issue?
I'm sorry, could you, restorative justice is a what?
A pride in Portage County.
Pride, P-R-I-D-E.
Pride,
Okay.
yeah. How do you feel about restorative justice?
Restorative justice is a laudable goal whereby
Could you define it first? So
Yeah, sure.
people out there wouldn't know it.
And although there are certain, there are many different types of definitions of restorative justice, but it's basically justice that focuses on community interaction with victims and the community to try and restore the status quo ante bellum, which would be the situation before the offense. It's a laudable goal, and I think aspects of it have worked quite well in Portage County. I do have some questions about restorative justice, and that is you have to be very careful, number one, on public safety. I don't think the principles of restorative justice and working with the community, and for example, let's say one of your neighbors thinks that the offense, there was a property crime in the neighborhood. One of the neighbors wants to give, essentially let it go, perhaps for a small offense, and the next neighbor thinks perhaps it should be very harsh. The definition of the critics of restorative justice go point to the issue is really how do you define that community, and what attention are you going to be placing on the victim? As a circuit court judge, my primary goal will be public safety. I will look very carefully at making sure the punishment fits the crime. Restorative justice can be a model, but you can't ignore some of the other factors that need to go into sentencing to make sure there's proportionality, justice, fairness, and making sure that individuals are deterred from future crimes. Thank you.
Thank you. That helps. Well, the big technology thing is, if it doesn't work, unplug it and plug it back in. Tom.
Well, and I think Mike was fairly accurate in what restorative justice means. It means bringing the offender back into equilibrium with the community and making sure the victim feels that they've had their interests heard as well. On a personal level, you can have restorative justice between offender and victim. Very often the victim wants to know why they were targeted to the crime. Burglary victims very often are very concerned as why did he pick my house? Has he been watching my house for months? Has he been seeing what's going on? And how much have I been violated? And it's the fear of the unknown that is very difficult. Restorative justice process can get the offender and offender-victim conferencing together to have the victim learn from the offender what was really going on, and very often it's, well, I needed something, so I walked by your house and I thought it looked like no one was home, so I went in. I don't know who you are, and very often that's helpful for the victim. That's where it can be helpful. On the other hand, very often victims just want to forget about, they want to know anything more, they just want to be left alone. So you have to go to a larger model of what I think will be more effective in the future perhaps, is where you have community panels, where you may have victim panels explaining how the crime affected them that this offender was involved with, and then the offender can understand how he's terrorized families, not necessarily a specific victim, but the victims in general. And by there, the offender starts thinking about what he's doing, and it really does help prevent them from doing that crime in the future. I think that was...
Oh, you did that. Gotcha. Next question. Wisconsin has a liberal judge substitution law. Would you change that in any way?
One, as a circuit court judge, I don't have authority to change it. We take it a statutory thing. Would I change it? Well, you say a liberal law, but basically what, under Wisconsin's rules, any defendant can one time ask for a different judge. He only gets that opportunity once. And these are, and they don't have to give a reason. There has been talk of changing the law to make the defendant get a reason. Frankly, I think it has a sense of fairness that the defendant can get that one substitution request, and I wouldn't change it. Judges on their own, if they don't think they can be fair, have to remove themselves from the case. But I think for offenders, one of the things I believe that offenders have to have a sense that they were treated fairly, whether they committed the offense or not. They have to be treated fairly by the system, and this one substitution gives a little sense of fairness to them. And quite frankly, in Portage County, at least, we haven't had any issues with that. The substitution has been very rare. I think that's in part because we've been blessed with some very good judges that the sense is they are willing to listen and give everyone an equal opportunity.
Substitution of judges is a critical portion of the judicial system. I think the present system works fairly well in that regard. I don't believe that there's a need to have a for-cause situation for substitution of the judges. The main thing about being a circuit court judge is you've got to be able to be independent, fair, and unbiased. And as Tom said, if you can't do that, you have a duty, an obligation to recuse yourself. The citizens deserve that. The parties before the court definitely deserve that. I don't think the system is broken. I really don't think it needs a fix at this point.
Mike, start with this one. Would you see community service used as an alternative sentence option in your court?
Community service options, I believe, should be available to the court. That's going to have to be carefully tailored to an offense where that might be an appropriate sentence. Of course, the primary concern of the circuit court is going to be public safety, but there may be a property crime where a community service would be appropriate. I know we have had in our county certain issues with community service because of the difficulty in just the pure logistics of community service, but I know community service, I believe, has been utilized and might be a great tool for rehabilitation, which is certainly one of the goals of our judicial system, and I would certainly use it in an appropriate case.
I really like community service, but there are some practical difficulties in implementing it. One, you have to find the right defendant for the right community service recipient. I mean, it would be really great to have offenders shoveling walks for our elderly, for example. On the other hand, if they're thieves and opportunists, you don't want to let them know where the vulnerable citizens are, and that becomes a problem. We have, my own idea for community service in the future is to be more specific. And what we've had community service programs in the past, but it's difficult to find offenders are a funny group. They'd rather sit in jail than than do their 40 hours of community service, which is very troubling. You got to find a way that punishes them rather than punishes us. So one thought I had was that in our county parks department has been really good at finding good community service work for these individuals and maintaining the Green Circle Trail. And I think what we need to do is directly order those offenders to work with the county parks to do that. They don't have a choice of anywhere else. They've got to go there to do it because they have professionals who are able to supervise and have dealt with these individuals before. The other part about community service is that it's also a great incentive for them to pay their fines. We have a lot of uncollected fines that we can't get from these individuals. You give them a choice of 40 hours of community service or paying your fine, they'll pay their fine, because the one thing these offenders are just amazing at is they just don't like to do the extra work. And if we can reward ourselves rather than them, I think we'll be better off.
One last question before the time runs out, and that is Portage County is a county with many services and programs to address needs of its citizens. If in your court you identify a need or a gap, does a judge have a role in addressing that need or gap?
I guess I have a difficult time in specifically addressing it because, of course, the judge only has authority for the cases that are there before him or her and has to address those. I mean, that's where you have the community service issue. If you have an appropriate defendant and there's an appropriate need within the community, you can order that. We've done that with a defendant who was skillful at creating websites, and he had a drug conviction. We gave him community service in lieu of jail or a fine, and had him work with one of our nonprofit organizations setting up their website. So that would be a case where there is you can help the need. The court does have a responsibility in knowing what the community is and where the needs are, and addressing those needs as they can appropriately through their work. I am not entirely certain where they would be able to create something that doesn't already exist. One area, though, that I can think of offhand, and that's with my work in legal aid, one of the most difficult problems courts have is unrepresented defendants, and in civil and criminal matters. The court does take an active role in encouraging private attorneys to take on some of these cases pro bono so that the needy indigent party to one of the action does have appropriate legal representation in court, and I would do that as judge.
Circuit court judge has to be a leader in the community, particularly a leader in the court. And I've got the background of leadership honed through combat experience and 30 years in the military to provide that kind of leadership. I think a judge has to look at possibilities, and I'll give you an example. Veterans Court. We should look in Portage County at establishing a Veterans Court. Judge Daly in Rock County, retired general with the Wisconsin Army National Guard, was a leader in doing this. I worked extensively with Judge Daly for over 8 years as his staff judge advocate. And the Veterans Court programs in Wisconsin have done quite well. These courts bring in veterans who may have issues before the court, be they an assault or some other criminal or civil matter. The attorneys involved then understand that the veterans will be given some consideration, particularly for their service-connected disabilities or service-connected issues such as post-traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injuries. I would suggest to folks that our returning vets from Iraq and Afghanistan have significant issues. Just watching the news this week, I saw where the national news is highlighting these issues. I think we should have one in Portage County. I think the suggestion that we don't need one does a significant disservice to veterans, and I'm committed to looking at that program consistent with public safety and justice. Thank you.
Thank you. We actually have 15 more minutes, but let me just say, we got one more question that was submitted by the audience, so I'll just mention that. Since you both have lived and worked here for many years, how would you address maintaining impartiality and fairness among lawyers you used to work with or argue cases against?
That's a great question. You know, I practiced law in a county where there was one judge, and that becomes a particular issue when you have a one-judge county, and there's the issues of conflict of interest. Leadership and experience tell you which cases you have to recuse yourself, and you can't be biased and impartial. And I'm the true independent in this race right here. So I bring that qualification to the bench. I've tried cases in the military with attorneys that I've known and taught and recruited, and I believe I have the capacity to be fair and impartial in those types of cases, and to have the experience, judgment, wisdom, and leadership to know which cases that I can't sit on, and that's what I would bring to the bench. Thank you.
I am fair and impartial every single day of the week. I've been the DA here for 17 years, and I have worked with virtually all the attorneys in the area. I have gained a reputation with them for being fair. They don't get preferential treatment because I know them. Their defendants don't get preferential treatment because I know them. But what they do get is they get justice. This is what a professional does. And because of, frankly, my professionalism, I have that reputation with defense attorneys and fellow prosecutors and the court. There's never been a question of one attorney getting a special treatment over another, nor will there be that question if I become judge.
Okay, thank you. If there's no more questions, I'd like to thank the candidates for the time and energy they have invested in running for Circuit Court Branch 1, Judge, and for participating in the forum. We hope you can stay and talk to the audience after the forum. The League would like to thank the Stevens Point Journal and the Portage County Gazette for publishing the candidates' responses to the League-sponsored questions. These questions are also available on the League website. A special thanks to the League members for their assistance with organizing and hosting the forum. Thank you to Cable Access TV and John Quirt and Sarah Thoreau, videographer, for their assistance. The program will be broadcast on cable TV. Thank you also to the staff of the library for the assistance and allowing the use of this facility. And I'd like to thank the audience for your attendance and your attention. Thank you.
Just a couple of brief announcements as you're leaving. There's some flyers on the table up here about some upcoming League programs. If you're interested in that, please help yourself. There's information here from United Wisconsin if you would like to sign up or learn more about voter registration activities. Is Nancy here? Anyway, you could sign up and she would get in touch with you about that. And I have these lovely signs that if you would like to have a sign in your yard, we encourage people to put them out during election season, which is almost year-round now in Wisconsin, but someday it won't. There will be an election season in the fall and in the spring, et cetera. We encourage people, just as a reminder, about these activities and voter education and information, et cetera. So thank you very much for coming.
you.